Excellent. Oh, you made it. Good to see you, Maria. Yeah, we're going to get started in just a couple more minutes. I want to make sure and give people a chance to hop on. This is a redo of this morning's because of technical difficulties and also because of a concern that some people weren't able to see it. So I'm really glad that I was doing this again, Lily, because you are able to be here now. So that's great. So I'll be starting in a few minutes and I'll be sharing my screen and going through a PowerPoint presentation that I put together on stress and laughter and how it impacts our sweet bodies and our sweet selves that are trying so hard, working so hard. Oh, goodness gracious. Yeah. Well, it's right up on 1 o'clock. I'm going to go ahead and get started. Let me see. I'm going to share my screen. And I'm going to ask if you are if you have a question, please go ahead and unmute yourself. Otherwise, I'm going to go process through. I don't have I may stop and ask for questions, but I don't have a way to easily see if you have a question. So please ask away. And I chose this, this picture because if you can see my screen, everyone see my screen? Yep, cool.
Yep.
All right. I chose this picture because it felt chaotic enough and yet beautiful enough. Our lives are really intensely woven together, and humans in particular, and we have a lot of things that connect us and a lot of things that throw us off. So I really like this image on this slide deck. So it's high time we laugh about our stress. When we laugh, we relax. When we relax, we learn. And I'm going to go into the reasons why we relax and the reasons why it's so good to learn. So I have a background in uber fluffiness. I spent decades morbidly obese. I weighed over 300 pounds for a lot of my life. I gained my weight with my first child. She's now 35. Okay, don't get me lying. She was born in 86. She's maybe 36 now. And I was morbidly obese from that time on until November of 2016. I was diagnosed type 2 diabetes and high cholesterol, which meant I was on a downward spiral to at 59 to being one of those statistics that goes to type 2 diabetes and has all sorts of medications. At this point, I'm still only on one single thyroid medication, and I'm so proud of that. So at the time, I was facing a lot of changes medications wise, and I decided to go off sugar. I decided to go off, I'd already been off gluten, and I went low glycemic and no oil back in November of 2016 to try to kick both the type 2 diabetes and high cholesterol. And in neither one of those got any better in the 6 months that I started that program. In May of 2017, I found Bright Line Eating. I had released 50 pounds on the old plan, if you will, but no better on my health journey, which was the reason I was doing all of this. I had basically decided I was not going to lose weight. That was a thing that it was in the past. I was not worried about that. I was concerned about changing my health. And so I went on Bright Line Eating when I found it, and immediately my A1C went down and so did my cholesterol. And since then, I've found that the research that bears that up. It's basically intermittent fasting that changed the way that my health improved with my A1C and my type 2 diabetes, which is in essence 3 meals a day is intermittent fasting. So as I was going through this process, I managed to release 170 pounds. I got down in November of 2018. In October of 2018, I ran a half marathon. Yes. And and I felt extremely wonderful. I have since then had a roller coaster of fun. I have not gained my weight back, but I have found it challenging and sometimes really downright hard to keep my weight off. And I've learned an awful lot about maintenance and an awful lot about our individual bodies, metabolic slowdown, insulin resistance, what is the right weight for us at goal, and excess skin. Oh my goodness, lots and lots and lots of data on that. So today I want to talk about stress, and I would love it if we could laugh a little and learn something in the meantime. So a couple of definitions of stress. I was actually in one of my book clubs listening to Brene Brown's definition today of stress, and here it is. We feel stressed when we evaluate environmental demand as beyond our ability to cope successfully. This includes elements of unpredictability, uncontrollability, and feeling overloaded. Stressful situations cause both physiological, body, and psychological, mind and emotion, reactions. My emotions are responding to my thinking assessment of how well I can handle something. Our brains are definitely involved in deciding whether or not our bodies need to go physically ballistic. Another definition, stress is your body's reaction to a challenge or demand. In short bursts, stress can be positive, such as when it helps you avoid danger, meet a deadline, or in hormesis. If you don't know what hormesis is, it is a positive stress on our bodies. It's often associated with exercise. It's also associated with cold therapies, even breathing. There's some real interesting data on there about hormesis, saunas, etc., which can be positive stress load on our bodies. While we're going through these slides today, I really want you to pay attention to really notice what your senses are. Any tension or stress markers coming up for you when I start talking about some of these things. These are indicators for you personally. We have the ability to uniquely and puzzle solving go through this process. Each one of us is a unique human being. We all identify with food challenges, but each one of us is unique, and our own experiences have helped us shape us where we are today. So pay attention to what's going on when I mention certain things, because there's a lot to go through today, and there may be a lot of things that might possibly even trigger you, but it'd be really great to be able to take note of that. Okay, 3 sisters, 92, 94, 96 years old. They live in a house together. One night, the 96-year-old draws a bath. She puts one foot in and pauses. Was I getting in the tub or getting out of the tub? The 94-year-old yells back, I don't know, I'll come up and see. She starts up the stairs and pauses. Was I going up the stairs or coming down the stairs? The 92-year-old sitting at the kitchen table, having tea and listening to her sisters. She shakes her head and says, I sure hope I never get that forgetful. She knocks on wood for good measure. I'll come up and help both of you as soon as I see who's at the door. This is the one and only joke that I know. And every time I tell it without this typewritten stuff in front of it, I screw it up. So I'm not a very good joke teller, but I have a wicked sense of humor. I really love to laugh. And that's the distinction. I don't need to tell my own jokes. I can appreciate humor out there. And this is my one and only attempt at humor. So I want you to hear that throughout this presentation, I will be endeavoring to show you more, to break up this intensity. And this is the example that I want to set for you, is a reminder that you can pause in the middle of anything and deal with that stressful situation, but we have to notice it first. So let's talk about the 5 types of stress. And I just want to say for the record that when I Googled types of stress, there was 4 types of stress, 5 types of stress, 6 types. It's a convoluted mess, but in relating to our types of stress, these are the things that came up for me. Environmental stress, toxins, weather, and then of course, toxic X's. Postural stresses, sitting is the new smoking. Our lymphatic system needs to move, but it has no engine. So it needs, and it's the thing that pushes through the toxins, it pushes through our hormonal flares, it helps regulate us. I use something called non-exercise activity thermogenesis to keep things moving. My watch tells me every hour that I need to move. And so in 40 minutes, if I haven't moved, it's going to alert me to get something and just get up and move. It does not require cardio. It doesn't require strength training. It just requires movement. Think about that in your day as making just one little change. Emotional stress. We don't have control over most things, but we do have control over how we react. Or do we? I think we've all felt the effects of having somebody else driving the bus for a minute and us not having any control over it. Those are often because of emotional stressors. So I'm going to go into more detail on that in a little bit. Nutritional stresses. This is another one I want to cover today, which is processed foods, elevate blood sugar. Man-made oils are inflammatory, factory farmed meats and the use of additives, preservatives, herbicides, antibiotics, and pesticides, too much processed food and overeating are all nutritional stresses. Oh, that makes me need to take a deep breath. And then there's the SWCC, which is something I came up with about a year and a half ago. I call it the shit we can't control. Apologies for the bad language, but sometimes there's research that says swearing is a thing. So I don't do much of it, but in this case, shit we can't control is a real thing for me, and it validates for me when things come around the corner that we're not expecting. So when you're looking at this list, how many recognize and feel all of these at some point in our day? It's real. Yeah. So here are some short-term benefits of laughter. A good laugh has great short-term effects. When you start to laugh, it just doesn't lighten your load mentally. It actually induces physical changes in your body. It stimulates many organs. Laughter enhances our intake of oxygen. Rich air stimulates your heart, lungs, and muscles and increases the endorphins that are released by your brain. It activates and relieves your stress response. A rollicking laugh fires up and then cools down your stress response, and it can increase and then decrease your heart rate and blood pressure. The result, a good relaxed feeling. What I just described there was heart rate variability in action, activated by the vagus nerve, in case you were curious. You'll hear more about both of those shortly, but I want to point that out. That's exactly the definition of heart rate variability that is so important. You can see the benefits just by that description. Soothe tension. Laughter can also stimulate circulation and aid muscle relaxation, both of which can help reduce some of the physical symptoms of stress. And a little break really quickly to remind ourselves that we can breathe in the middle of all of this. I don't care about my Prince Charming. Where are the forest animals that clean? I've got a few memes in here just so you know. The long-term benefits of laughter. It's not just a quick pick-me-up. It's also good for your overall long-term. It improves your immune system. Negative thoughts manifest into chemical reactions that can affect your body by bringing more stress into your system and decreasing your immunity. By contrast, positive thoughts can actually release neuropeptides that help fight stress and potentially more serious illnesses. Aha! This is important. Laughter is important. It's not frivolous. It's not secondary. It's not disrespectful. It's important. Relieve pain. Laughter may ease pain by causing the body to produce its own natural painkillers. It increases personal satisfaction. It can be used to cope with difficult situations. It also helps you connect with other people. Think about the latest argument that you had with a friend or a significant other. When you can laugh in the middle of it, that's healthy. Many people experience depression, sometimes due to chronic illnesses. Laughter can lessen that. And depression and anxiety, and may make you feel happier. It can also improve your self-esteem. And the emotional stress on the body. This is what happens, especially with chronic stress. When you feel threatened, your nervous system responds by releasing a flood of stress hormones, including adrenaline and cortisol, which rouse the body for emergency action. This can become chronic if we can't release it. And that's what I was talking about earlier about the non-exercise activity thermogenesis. Every time we're stressed, if we were to go for a quick walk, 2 minutes, 3 minutes up to the mailbox and back, we're releasing stress. We're working our lymphatic system and aiding our adrenals. Your heart rate pounds faster when you're in stress. Muscles tighten, blood pressure rises, breath quickens, and your senses become sharper. This is all designed for the fight, flight, or freeze. And the kicker for me, the thing that really raised a real big red flag for me is when we're in stress, our digestion goes offline because it's prepping for you to fight, flight, or freeze. You're not going to be stopping for a snack if you're being chased by a lion. Really important. We need to be in rested mode when we're eating. Really important. Oh, I did the math. We can't afford the cat. I want to point out that when we're by ourselves, we rarely laugh out loud. We're 30 times more likely to laugh in company than out of company. So I want to remind you all that I feel like I'm in company, and I find this very humorous. So you may have laughed, but you're on mute. So I just really think that this would have been Doug. I had a rescue pit bull, and he would have absolutely said, we can't afford the cat, because he was always being limited on where he could go because the 2 cats were out in the living room. I think he would have preferred if we'd said, no, we can't afford the cat. So tangible shifts that you can make to lighten your load, improve your sense of humor. No problem. Humor can be learned. In fact, developing or refining your sense of humor may be easier than you think. You can put it on your horizon. You can put up pictures and memes and things that make you chuckle, comic strips. When I was growing up, we would read the comic strips and cut out the comic strips and put them on in little notebooks and other places to save them. We didn't have a thing called the interwebs at that point, or that series of tubes or the Googles. You can keep funny movies, TV shows, and books and magazines and ready for you to make sure that you laugh. Making laughter a priority, really important. Sharing a laugh, making it a habit to spend time with friends who make you laugh. And then return the favor by sharing funny stories or jokes. Anyone with a positive attitude can move into laughter much more easily. So my hope is that you can shift that and remind yourself that there's nothing wrong with having a positive attitude, even in this day and age. You can browse your local bookstores or libraries and selections of books, and of course the Google. And just a reminder that not everything is funny, and to know when it's not. At least to apologize if you make something humorous when the other person doesn't think it is. And this one is particularly annoying, honestly. If you could tell me whether it's my username or my password that's incorrect, that would be great. That would be really helpful. Now I'm going to dive into something that's a little bit out from the kinds of science that I've been exposed to since I started Bright Line Eating. The Polyvagal Theory, that it may be more current now, but it is definitely something that has grabbed my interest for a number of reasons. It's a more sophisticated model than the standard nervous system that is either resting or fight, flight, or freeze. It's a network to detect what level of danger you're in, if you're safe or you're under threat. So you might be in a dangerous situation, like, this is the more sophisticated model based on our current world. We might be under threat because we're up for a promotion and we've got to vie against someone else, or we're in a competition. Those are threats, but they're not danger. And so we can determine the difference based on our vagus nerve and the polyvagal theory that puts us in a different spot on the nervous system anticipatory setup. So in that response, it regulates a number of key processes. The main ones I want you to take away today, this is so important, is that our resonant warmth is the system that we have set up that is basically the voice of the default mode network, which is our inner critic. The default mode network is a series of systems in our brain, a system in our brain that that speaks to us basically in our own voice when we're in quiet. Even between math exercises, your default mode network comes online. Excuse me. It is lacerating for most of us. And that's because we started out with a lack of warmth in our lives. For whatever reason, my mom, my dad didn't give me what I needed to make me feel good about myself, to make me feel solid and strong, and to make me feel safe enough. I definitely felt unsafe quite a lot. I felt like I was in charge. I was the oldest and the only girl, 4 kids in 5 years. I felt very much vulnerable to being in charge at age 5, 6, and 7. Think about that and what that can do to a nervous system. And so my default mode network was automatically critical, automatically resistant, and pushing me constantly toward perfectionism, automatically insisting that I be a certain score 100% plus on my tests, show up every day for school, be the A student, and always having all the answers, always taking care of everyone at home. All of those things applied to my upbringing and created what I call a lacerating default mode network, that inner critic. It also developed something called unconscious contracts. Sarah Payton wrote a book called Your Resonant Self, which is pivotal in explaining a little bit about the lacerating default mode network. And then she goes into more detail on the unconscious contracts in the workbook associated with that she wrote a 1.5 years later. I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail now, but I can tell you I am going to go into a lot more detail as I'm offering more of these classes. This is unconscious contracts is a really big deal. We set up concepts within ourselves. Let's think of one. I'm never going to stay at my right size body. I can't lose weight. I've lost it once. I'm never going to be able to do it again. I'm not worthy. There are hundreds of unconscious contracts, and it's a really deep subject, and it's worthy of a lot of time. So I'm not going to go into it today, but it's associated with the vagus nerve. So when we're talking about the low vagal tone, it's linked to the vagus nerve that is basically a tree. It hits up here as the tree limbs, and then it goes through our brainstem and down into and covers and connects to every single organ in our system. The vagus nerve is extremely important in sending signals back to the brain from the gut. We don't talk a lot in Bright Line Eating or in anywhere else about the gut biome. And I want you to all be clear how important the gut biome is. If you've been on the same simple foods for the last 5 years, if you've been on the same foods, keeping everything simple, you're in danger of not having enough variety, and your gut biome may be limited. It may be one of the reasons you're having trouble keeping your weight off. There are any number of reasons for that, but the vagus nerve, which deals with and implies the vagal tone, is instrumental in how healthy that is determined by these factors. So anxiety and or physical tension and jitteriness can be a symptom of low vagal tone. Negative emotional status. If you can think about tone as in the signals sending up and down, if they're muted, if they're understated, if they're weak, that's what I'm talking about here. Racing thoughts and difficulty turning off mental activity, too much craziness going on up here without the soothing of the serotonin. 80% of serotonin is produced in the gut. Think about that. If our gut is off balance, guess what? Serotonin, one of the best happy hormones we can have, that's gonna shift from our need for dopamine, that fix. Really important. Low resistance to stress. So imagine things that used to be easy for us to handle now are insurmountable. That's in large part because of low vagal tone. Poor satiety or sense of relaxation while eating. Again, that's what I talked about earlier about being in resting mode. When our vagus nerve is relaxed and calm and rested, very important for eating. Our food doesn't taste the same and it doesn't digest the same if we're in constant fight, flight, or freeze. Again, digestive problems. I mentioned earlier heart rate variability. This is a really interesting topic. I've been studying it for about the last 3 months now. Fascinating. I got the Aura ring just so I could learn more about my own HRV, among other things. I'm a data geek, but the heart rate variability is fascinating. There's a lot of different ways to measure it. And it's basically the greater your heart rate variability is. Our heart rate is never supposed to be consistent. It should vary quite a bit. And the greater it is, it is a sign of health, emotional health, physical health. Frequent urination is actually associated with the low vagal tone. It's also associated for me with some other issues having to do with, birthing 2 watermelons. God bless my children. High cortisol levels and adrenaline and noradrenaline levels also create low vagal tone. They limited capacity for orgasms, blood sugar and blood pressure problems, conditions like anxiety disorders, OCD, and more. And how does stress manifest in us? Well, aches and pains, chest pain, tightness, constriction, or feeling like your heart is racing. Those are specific incidents of stress. Like if you were, in a near car accident, or if you, you avoided getting hit by, just moments, that's that kind of stress. Exhaustion or trouble sleeping, headaches, dizziness, shaking, those are all symptoms of chronic stress, as well as digestion, constipation, indigestion, heartburn, gas. Those are all symptoms of chronic stress. If you think about what that does to, in relation to the vagus nerve that I just mentioned, that's the physical reason. There's also other reasons, cortisol and adrenaline overload, causing an imbalance in the way our systems operate can cause constipation and digestion. Slower heart rate variability, metabolic slowdown and weight gain, really, really important in this. If we can't get our stuff under control, if we can't mitigate some of these stress points, I'm not suggesting that we can stop the craziness that's going on with Ukraine. We can't. Even shutting off the news, even not paying attention to it, even asking other people around us to not talk about it. I believe very strongly that you can feel that the tension in the air. So what can we do specifically to lower the stress level in general? We can't stop those kinds of things. That's the SWCC that I talk about, but we can mitigate some other things. And I want to go into that. But first of all, do you realize that 2022 is just 2022? Do you realize that? Yeah, it's a thing. So how can we use the vagus nerve to our advantage? Alternate nasal breathing. I don't know if you know what that is, but in essence, do this. Doesn't take much. So put your finger and close off one side of your nostrils. So one nostril, so you can breathe only through one. And inhale. And then close that up and exhale through the other side. And then inhale back up through the same nostril. And exhale out through the other nostril. And keep repeating that. Inhale. Hold and exhale out through the other nostril. As deep and as long as you can. And inhale. Switch and exhale out. This does multiple things. First of all, it slows down your breathing, which we've determined is helpful with heart rate variability. It also communicates to the left and right brain differently. So it allows for coherence in a different way. It can really open up your consciousness to do this alternate nasal breathing. 4-box breathing is something I recommend right before you eat. If you were to take this, and 4-box breathing is basically, and I don't know why I need to take my glasses off for this, but I'm going to. So you inhale to count of 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, hold for 4, inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, hold for 4. Now you can actually go to 5 and 6 and 7 and 8. You can go as long as you can. The longer you hold your breath, the more relaxed your body becomes, the more calm everything in your system becomes. But the 4-box breathing, if you do that 4 times, that can really aid in going from the crazy space of the fight, flight, or freeze, literally answering email and arguing on a phone call, to the rested space when you're sitting down to eat your lunch. Reminder too, that with that breathing, you can also say while you're counting, if you can do both at once, I am safe, I am fine, I am at peace. Whatever your favorite mantra is, also reminds all your sweet parts that everything is fine, so they don't feel like they need to get on protection mode. Digestion, getting into that resting mode after each meal or before each meal. Watching your heart rate variability, emotional regulation and breathing. Metabolic slowdown can shift because we're letting our brains know we're not starving, everything's fine. Metabolic slowdown happens when our brains think we're starving. And that's what happens when we keep going back to this, I want to cuss at it, the weight loss plan. It's really fine for the first time out. It doesn't work going forward. And I have a lot of different ideas too about the nutritional value of that particular chart. I'm working right now on putting out my own chart that has a better look at what is really nutritionally wise, especially for us veterans. Gut-brain connection, 40 fruits and veggies a month. Okay. Think about the keeping it simple. I went 3 years basically having the same food, the same vegetables, the same protein sources, the same fat sources, the same fruits. My gut biome was shutting down. It was very healthy. I'm vegan. It should be very healthy, but it wasn't getting enough variety. They suggest 40 fruits and vegetables, including spices, a month to help you get a more balanced gut biome. And it doesn't take very long for your gut to get balanced. It doesn't. So think about how many vegetables and fruits you eat in a month. And that does include if you're eating vegetable proteins, that includes those as well. The other thing that the gut-brain connection does is lessens cravings by balancing your gut biome. Think about high levels of yeast, for instance, in our gut. That yeast is screaming, feed me, Seymour. If we can get a balance, I believe that that's one of the reasons we keep craving sugar after we're done with it. I believe that that's one of the reasons. There's emotional and behavioral and other physical reasons, but our gut biome is definitely at play. Taking advantage of the vagus nerve means stimulating it. Singing is one of the easiest ways. If you think about just where it is, it's impacting our lungs, it's impacting our connections right here all the way through. When you are singing, you are activating the vagus nerve. Gargling does it too, but I prefer to sing. It's much more fun. So singing and dancing. Singing will activate your vagus nerve. Dancing will move your lymphatic system. It's a win-win. Highly recommend it on a regular basis. That can be your non-exercise activity thermogenesis throughout the day. Turn on one song every hour and dance like you are on Broadway. So these are the kinds of things that we run into stress-wise on a regular basis. I need to take a deep breath before I go through this list because it's an intense one. Inflation, political disagreements, war, hunger, divorce, death, commuting, money problems, illness, COVID, relationship conflicts, caregiving, loss of a job, relocating, getting married, obesity. Take a little temperature after that. How many of those triggered you? So one of the things that I believe very strongly in is reframing. We can absolutely wallow, and I don't mean that in a negative way, but we can absolutely wallow in all of these things that are going on around us. We can spend the entire day checking off negative after negative after negative. But is it possible that we can reframe those things that are happening to us? First of all, if something is happening to me, I'm learning something from it. As I mentioned earlier, if I can laugh, I can relax, and I can learn. So think about what you can learn from the negative things that have happened to you. I personally think that having carried around 200 extra pounds for, I don't know, what did I say, 35 years, 30 years, has definitely made its mark on me. And I can look at that as a negative. And I can also say, wow, I'm really strong. My legs are strong. I'm able to leap tall buildings in a single bound now because of carrying that weight. So think about these things. I've listed a bunch of them. I think it's really important to consider there is another option. One of them in particular, hunger. I spent 2 years hungry before I read Stephen Guyanet's The Hungry Brain, and figured out that I could do some things physically lightly because we'd all been told don't exercise. Well, I need you to hear that exercise is one of the main things that can help us with hunger. So hunger for me was consistent and regular. I always knew I was going to be hungry between breakfast and lunch. I was going to be hungry between lunch and dinner. I was going to be hungry between dinner and bedtime. And I changed my mindset on it. I said, it means I'm losing weight. And I did a little happy dance and I drank some tea or some water and I set my alarm for 20 minutes and I went on about my business. But I did a lot of white knuckling. And my hope is that some of this research will help you not have to do that same white knuckling. It may be the reason you gain some weight back. Some other of these, I listed all of them that I'd listed before. All of these are reframes for the negatives that happen in our lives. Getting married, no more painting red flags white, that's me. Obesity, I have beautiful battle scars, deeper appreciation for every movement, and so many incredible lifelong friendships. Oh, I can't. I was a loner. I didn't spend a lot of time with any people in particular, and I have now really deep, important friendships. And there's the loss of the job. That's a kick in the pants. Yeah. It's important to be comfortable in your own skin because it's illegal to wear someone else's. Just so you know, it is illegal to wear someone else's skin, but I put this in there as obviously an icebreaker and a calmer, and hopefully you'll take a deep breath right now after listening to those other things. But just a reminder that we have excess skin, and it's hard to determine what exactly that weighs. It's hard to determine what exactly we are, how we're supposed to calculate it. I can tell you with assurance, it sets off TSA. They think I'm carrying explosives. I look like a Christmas tree on the TSA security cameras, and I can't do a DEXA scan and do it justice. I have no idea what my body fat percentage is. Addiction. I need to say this. This is really, really important. Processed substance addiction begins often in infancy. Alcoholics, cigarette smokers, drug addicts start their addictions later, hopefully in middle school at least. Think about the brain formation that happens around our addictions versus alcohol, cigarettes, and drugs. And then let's add in the fact that alcoholics at AA meetings fill themselves with processed foods, smoke cigarettes like crazy, drink caffeine, all to keep off of alcohol. We get not only the trifecta, but we're also very aware of the other things that are byproducts of different addictions. You know, let's move from one addiction to another and start shopping or screen time or gambling. All of these other things we become hyper aware of, and I cannot say enough about the challenges that we face as processed substance addictors. Here's a list, and I would posit that there are substances out there that contain every single one of these. This is what happens to our brains when we consume these things. Sugar activates dopamine, which is the anticipation hormone, and can become downregulated. Each one of these can become downregulated, which means we have to eat more of these substances to get the same hit. Flour releases serotonin. Gluten releases opiates. Excessive salt releases opiates. Dairy releases opiates. Processed fats releases endocannabinoids. Caffeine releases dopamine. Food additives, we have no idea. They've not been able to study those separately. I need you to hear that these are all addictive poison additives. We're not really addicted to food. We're addicted to the crap they put in it. And this is where I like to look. This sweet kitty. If you only focus on the problem, you might miss the easy solution. I'm afraid I do have a cat that might do this. This isn't mine, but I'm afraid I do. I have a cat that might sit there wondering when I was going to open the door. We are addicted to food or the man-made addictives. Which one is it? We're not addicted to carrots or broccoli or pinto beans. We're addicted to sugar, processed fat, extra salt, gluten, additives. And are they food? I don't consider them not my food. I don't. They're just not food to me. And I think it's important that words matter. When I tell people I'm a food addict, they just look at me like I'm crazy. But if I were to say I'm an addictive substances addict, it makes a difference in my mind. There's a pride associated with it. I'm not addicted to food. I love food. And because of these addictive substances, I developed diabetes, I developed obesity, I developed cardiovascular disease, and apparently I developed obesity again. My dad had a stroke. My mom had colon cancer. I was on that road for both of them. My mom has dementia. My grandmother had Alzheimer's. I was on the road for all of that. And all of these are comorbidities of addictive food substances. And a little bit of sweetness. One day I'm going to make onions cry. Let's just take a deep breath for a minute. Does anybody have any questions? Anyone have any questions about any of this? So far, I've just been plowing through this. We have a few more slides and a few more minutes. And I do believe that there's a lot here around stress in particular, but I know I threw in some nuggets that you might have some questions on. There were quite a number of questions this morning, and I can go over those as well. One of those was on determining your proper weight. One of the things that I find really challenging that I noticed early on in my journey was this business. I don't know if you can see this, but I have excess skin everywhere. I have, speaking of, now this one doesn't have that issue, but I am notorious for my silly hats that I got for volunteering forever at a camp for sexually abused girls. And in this, hi, Luann. Hi, sweetheart. Oh, so good to see you. I have probably, I don't know, 60 or 70 hats. Not all of them are as hypermobile as this one, but I have several hats that became too big for me. I lost weight in my head. I lost weight in my shoes. My shoes went down a full size. So all I'm trying to tell you is I have excess skin everywhere. When I first started on this journey to try to determine what my right size body should be so that I can aim for it and land the plane, I'm 5'3". I'm supposed to weigh 115 pounds. And I was told add 5 to 10 pounds for excess skin, because that's what comes off when we have belly surgery. Well, what about this? And what about my thighs, my waterfalls? And what about my Sharpay's eyebrows on my ass? And what about the rivulets and flows in water that was running down my back and my stomach and my beautiful apron? How do we determine that? So because I'm so passionate about excess skin and us loving the scars that we carry, I determined that we needed to do a calculation. So think about this for a minute. 16% of our body weight, 16 to 18% of our body weight is skin, okay? On a regular sized person. So what we did is some math. I took 300 pounds, 315 pounds at my highest weight, because my skin needed to cover all of that area, right? I took 315 pounds. And my 115, because I'm very low, I have tiny, skinny little legs. So I wasn't carrying my weight low. So I knew the French formula 115 was probably right. And I weighed 106 in high school and I was anorexic. So I figure 115 was probably accurate. You guys with me so far? 200 pounds is the difference. So I had 200 excess pounds that my skin had to cover. So I made 200 times 0.16 to 1.18. That's my range of excess skin. That's 32 to 36, right? 32 to 36 extra pounds, folks. Guess what I landed at? Guess what I stopped at? 145 pounds. Guess what? 115 plus 145 or plus minus 145, that's 30 pounds. Guess what? I tried so hard to get lower than that. I had a call with Susan. I want to say it was May 15th. It might have been, I think it was May 15th in 2018, talking about how I didn't think I was going to get any lower and I had so much more to lose and I was really upset and I didn't know what to do. And she said, well, maybe you just need to stop here and start exercising. She never acknowledged, and I'm not blaming Susan, but she never acknowledged that I might have enough excess skin. She doesn't understand it because she doesn't have it. And I'm not saying I'm not saying she doesn't know what she's talking about, but in this case, she did not know what she was talking about. So if you consider 115, I shouldn't have, 145 was too low. 145 for a 5'3" woman that weighed 300 plus pounds was too low. My weight that settles, as far as I know, I haven't weighed myself in 6 months easily because I depend on other things, but my weight is probably around 155 to 160. And I am a fighting weight. I'm strong, I'm powerful. I roll out of bed in the morning with no problems. I can run in my woods. I can leap tall buildings in a single bound. I feel really good at that weight. I know, right? I need you all to hear, if I had tried to get down to that 115, I have no idea, but I do know this much. I would have been way too low body fat wise. I wouldn't have been able to do a DEXA scan because my DEXA scans can't measure, as I mentioned earlier, they can't measure excess skin appropriately. The machine, I actually contacted the manufacturer. They calibrate it and say anything that is not determined as lean or fat gets split. Generally, that's how the calibration is. So there's no way for me to adequately measure my body fat percentage. So I have to go by this formula, and I have to be grateful for how I feel and acknowledge that this is where I'm supposed to be. Does all that make sense? Yeah. All right, I'm going to go back to my slides, make sure everybody understood all of that. If you have any questions about any of this, you can always message me, and you can always reach out to me for any other questions that you might have. So I'm going to go back to sharing my screen and finishing up these wonderful slides. The science of emotional stress relief. This is a really interesting thing that I found. 1 minute of anger can weaken our immune system for 5 hours. It's almost as bad as sugar. Sugar weakens our immune system for 6. 1 minute of laughter, 1 minute, can strengthen our immune system for 24 hours. Figure out a way to fake laugh. If you can't do it honestly, fake laugh. And I don't mean that the fake laugh is not honest. You know what I mean? That's a fake laugh. There's something called the neuroscience of laughter, which is a TED Talk by Sophie Scott. And she talks about this, and it's interesting to me. You're 30 times more likely to laugh when you're with someone that you trust, in part because it's contagious. And the two different types, the posed versus involuntary laughter, impact the left frontal lobe, the amygdala, the hippocampus, and the limbic system. So when we're talking about being triggered, our amygdala, it goes, takes everything else offline. So our prefrontal cortex does no longer have capacity. You want to know why you can't get to your EAP? Because it's offline because you've been triggered. Your prefrontal cortex doesn't work anymore. Your amygdala is in charge, and it is not going to take time to have a meeting and schedule a set of proposals and go through a process. No, your amygdala is acting because it thinks it's in fight, flight, or freeze mode, and it needs to act. And so it's going to enact the things that we've done before. That's what the insula does. It carries out the tasks that worked in the past. And guess what that is? Face planting in the pantry. You've learned about laughter, and frankly, you're not great at it until your 30s or early 40s. So here's another shout out for the 50s, 60s, and 70-year-olds. It's really important that you manage stress situations with laughter. It shows that it creates a higher level of satisfaction. Couples stay together with better emotional regulation. Think about how important it is when you're in the middle of a big old fight with your significant other to start laughing. Obviously not laughing at them, but laughing with them can create such a dissipation of the anxiety and stress. And by the way, positive people live 10 years longer. A little reminder, this is what I alluded to earlier about how we can't control some of the stressors. We can't. I can't do anything about what's going on in Ukraine. I can't do anything about the political discourse that's happening in this country. I can't do anything about the fact that my kid can't find my keys to my car. I can't do anything about any of those things. But what I can do is recognize all of the other triggers and all of the other stressors that I could be hit with. That's why we call this hard. We have to avoid triggers. This is what we have to do on a regular basis when we are addicted to food substances. Avoid triggers. We have to shop for food. We have to prepare food. We have to store food. We have to carry food. We have to order in restaurants. We have to deflect food pushers. We have to persuade exasperated partners who are sick and tired of us vacillating back and forth, or who just want their whatever to sit when they're sitting there and enjoying a movie. We have to ask them to help because they don't understand. We have to navigate work situations. I remember at Verizon how hard it was to walk past the lunchroom or the conference room when there were big things going on. I remember specifically one of the reasons I started taking parts work was because I remember hearing the voice in my head saying, oh, close your eyes, don't look to your left. I remember vividly hearing, plug your nose, when I walked by somebody's station that had French fries. I remember vividly these moments. And I know that my parts were not pushing me toward the indulger, but were actively supporting me. But that's where we have to navigate those social circles and those work environments. We get to set boundaries with toxic people. Boy, isn't that challenging? When they're constantly saying, oh, come on, you can just have a little. Or I have a brother who has a severe weight problem, and he gets really upset that I haven't gained my weight back. I just know it. Okay, that's the story I'm telling myself. But I do believe that it's possible that he does not feel good about himself, and so he's blaming me. Very possible. Medical shaming and blaming. How many times have we gone to the doctor and been told, oh, there's nothing we can do about it? They blame our weight. Redefine who we are as we're losing weight. Think about what our identity is. If it wasn't an uber fluffy person, what is it? And as we're redefining, how do we handle the triggers that are happening for us, the little traumas and the big traumas that are coming up for us? How do we deal with those? Because now we aren't safe. Some people keep that weight on because they want to protect themselves. It's real. And that's something that we get to work on. And that's why we're in community, and that's why we get this kind of support. Don't forget to redefine a treat, because it's not food. It's not food. And I want to remind everybody, Netflix, are you still watching? Me. It's okay to binge watch something while you're in the middle of healing your other stuff. Just a reminder, we are in the throes. We are in the throes of dealing with our own, as I just listed, I don't even know how many, 10 or 12 things that we get to deal with on a regular basis. Don't beat yourself up because you're still watching Netflix. Every one of you on this call is a veteran of weight loss. Whether or not you've been successful, whether or not you've been able to maintain it, you are a veteran. And you're a veteran of yourself. You have a PhD in you. And you know, if there's ways that you can lessen your stress, here are a few. Think about what that scale does. Like I told you earlier, I haven't been on it. It's not always an easy thing. Believe me, there's extra stress added when you first stop weighing yourself. But think about all the other ways that you can measure. Think about all the other ways that you can determine your success. Find a pair of pants that you really love that you want to keep on. Or if you're in the weight loss phase, you don't need to have that number. You don't need it. And if that scale is causing you stress or causing you to do this white knuckling business, when you get on and you haven't lost, or when you get on and you have, both apply. I've heard it from both people. You lose weight and you feel like, oh, you've got a free pass, or you don't lose weight and you get mad and you eat. Both of them activate our emotional stressors. Please check your actual nutrition. If you've been on a plan, and boy, if you've been on the weight loss plan after 5 years, I don't care if you were off of it and, in eating half the grocery store. Please check your nutritional information. I'm happy. Please keep me on your watch list. I've got a nutritional plan I'm putting out that I think makes more sense and deals with the long term. That weight loss plan is designed for 10 weeks, but we keep using it over and over and over again. Don't forget, 8 ounces of almond milk is not a protein. 2 ounces of almonds is really not a protein. And sweet potatoes is not a grain. You can use it as a grain, but please count it as a vegetable. Please, sweet potatoes deserve your love and attention. Please. Please. Remember, 90% might be exactly how you live vibrantly. 90% versus the 100%. Think about perfection. 90% can be perfect. It's an A on every test I've ever taken. So think about that and giving yourself a break, because when we can relax and lessen the stress, if we're eating, somebody said earlier, 2 ounces of carrots is not going to break your diet, but it is going to break your spirit and add to your stress. A few things I like to do. I like to think of my managers as mentors. Instead of that clipboard with the pinchy glasses and the pinch collar, I like to think of them as mentors, helping me, guiding me, reminding me of what I value. Firefighters and protectors as advocates, those advocating for me, encouraging me to dream and to rest and to leap tall buildings in a single bound, and to encourage me. I really, really, really got to say, our wounded children and exiles do not deserve that moniker. Words are important. Let's call them spunky kids. They can still have temper tantrums and they can still get upset, but they're really spunky kids. And listen to the itch. I have 20 plus years of high histamine levels that caused asthma, and it caused hives. I was in the hospital multiple times. I had bronchitis in the hospital. I had pneumonia multiple times. And I want you to hear, lessening the itch. If there's something that's really causing you to do this every time it's in your house, consider letting it go for a while and relaxing. We've got enough stress right now. We can do anything. We've proven it. So if there's something that's causing you to be itchier, remove it for now. And the same with reducing the cues. Put those foods that you don't want to see, that are required in your house, in a container far away, out of sight, out of mind. Fast forward through commercials, stay on the outside, have a list. I would, if I were you, if you're susceptible right now, I would order and have your groceries carried outside. I wouldn't even go into the grocery stores right now. Make a phone call when you're driving home to help you stop from turning into that fast food place. And I just want to share, it's really over time, but I want to share something. I have a work in progress. And I want to give you guys an idea about what that is. I don't know if you can see this. Let me see if I can make this bigger. Can you see that okay? This has been something that I've been working on for some time. And the reason that I haven't written a book yet, I don't know if you can tell, but I really love to write. I love the word, the written word, and I love alliteration. So I have been working on this thing, and I have 7 big sticky note pads like this on my walls. This one is in particular focused on the neon gift of eating off plan. Yes, when you eat off plan, it is a gift because it's reminding you of all sorts of things. So think about the different reasons why you might eat off plan. And if you can pause for a minute and reflect without impassioned, painful shame and guilt, think about what has caused you to eat off plan. These are all the different aspects that I've included in there, and I'm going to go into these when I'm on my talks as I'm going through. But this is the area I'm literally considering a murder board, you know, where you connect things by strings. because these are all interrelated in one fashion or another. So my idea is to write about each of these and have them connected to something else. These are all associated with eating off plan. So my hope is that at some point I'm able to bring these all together for you. I talked a little bit about, I don't know if I mentioned prickly pear syndrome today, but grading reality, noticing, choosing your hard, shifting your focus, calm, reporting your day in a way that feels supportive to you, being your own detective. And do you think you can still lose weight? That's an unconscious contract we have. Many of us do. That's my, oops. Sorry, I can't see anything now. Okay. That's my, my work in progress, my brainstorming middle of the night stuff that I do. Yeah, it keeps me up at night in a really great way. So these are some other complications. I just want to finish up. I promise we're just a few minutes away. Other complications that might arise. Stressed brain cells are very close to the addictive brain cells. Think about that for a minute. When we're stressed, we could actually be tickling our addictive brain cells, which can cause more cravings. So the more that we can do to lessen it, the better. And maybe the reason you aren't losing weight is you need to work out what's causing the stress before you can lose the weight. It's a big deal. Metabolic slowdown, insulin resistance, environmental and relationships. There's my prickly pear. When you think about a prickly pear, it's a cactus with pricks. And that's how I feel sometimes when my nervous system is imbalanced. At the very beginning, we had a plasma ball that, well, maybe we didn't, I might have removed that. A plasma ball is one of those glass balls where you touch it and the static electricity goes out. That's what it feels like for me when I'm in the prickly pear syndrome. Things that set me off that normally wouldn't. I got all upset about dishes one day, and I just don't do that. It takes 7 minutes to empty and fill a dishwasher. I'm not going to ever get mad about that. But when I did, I knew something was off. And I recognized that I hadn't done my exercising and I hadn't done my meditation. My self-care had come off. And guess what? Ukraine. We have to get a better balance. When we're recognizing and acknowledging, when we're noticing the stressors that are coming up for us, we need to recognize and honor that. Now, sometimes it's impossible. Sometimes it's impossible to fit another thing in. But it's never impossible to take a breath, and it's never impossible to have a laugh. It's not something you need to add to the schedule. You can just do it. Another thing I do for looking upstream rather than regret, think about that as helping you solve your own detective puzzles. I'm a really great detective. I ask a lot of questions. And a lot of stuff just intuitively comes to me, probably because I have so much experience already in the background and things light up, and probably because I have some really bright spirit guides that are like, ask this question. What about this? So remembering that looking upstream rather than regretting when you break your lines. And then let's talk about mirror neurons. Why does that keep happening for me? Sorry, guys. Mirror neurons is in essence, as mammals, we mimic. It's one of the main things that we do. And so getting in community with people that are in your same like-minded attitude is one of the reasons why I've let go of a lot of my old community that just wanted to eat and drink all the time. And I joined a group when COVID started called the Boomer Babes, 50s, 60s, and 70-year-old women. And all they've been doing is meeting for food and drinking. And I just couldn't do it. It was too challenging. And I felt like I was an outsider. I really did. So I understand the idea that we need to stay in a community that is going to support us in our journeys. I'm not saying let go of family. but I do think that especially in your early days, staying away from things that are going to add more stress, and mirroring things that are supportive and nurturing and healthy. And I said it beautifully earlier about perfectionism. I'm not sure I can mimic it, but I'm going to try. So generally, when I talk to somebody and I say, wow, that sounds like you're a perfectionist, they immediately say no. And the reason everybody says no is because they don't do it perfectly. So they can't be a perfectionist. Guess what? The definition of perfectionism isn't doing it perfectly. It's wanting and needing to do it perfectly and falling short when you don't. It's especially obvious to me when I see an intelligent person in front of me who's upset with themselves because they didn't get it right. They say, oh yeah, I didn't have a good week. Really? What was wrong? Well, I ate a little bit more than I should have for dinner on Thursday night, and on Friday at lunch I had an extra whatever. Okay, 21 meals, 2 meals off slightly. Would you label that person as a perfectionist? I would say, because perfectionists get a bad name. We're not supposed to be perfectionists, but we sure are expected to be perfect in our bright lines. And I understand the psychology behind it. Believe me, there's a slippery slope that's dangerous, can be, but it's only dangerous because we're perfectionists. We would not go down that rabbit hole and spiral down if we weren't such perfectionists trying so hard to be perfect. Okay, so you had a little bit more. What if you relaxed into that? What if you let that go, made note of it maybe, whatever, but let it go and gave yourself self-compassion. Ooh, that's a good word. I don't know if it's the same number of syllables and letters, but I prefer a self-compassionist to a perfectionist. And just a little reminder, we had a conversation earlier. This is Wordle, in case anybody doesn't know, and this is from the movie Say Anything. He's actually holding up a boombox and someone has photoshopped in a graph of Wordle. And if you've got any knowledge of this game, it's played once a day, and I think it's kind of fun, but it can also be stressful, but it can also be fun. Again, it's a reframing opportunity for you. If I can recommend one thing to change, it would be noticing. I've listed a few here, but if you were to just make one change today to help, noticing, what if everything is okay with your food? Relaxing. What if the stories we're telling ourselves are just that, stories? What if the oh, they don't like me, or they hate me, or they wouldn't accept me is really just a story you're telling yourself? How does that make you feel when you recognize that it might not be true? Does that relax you at all? What if balancing versus reacting in the pendulum swing? Think about when we overeat and then we immediately restrict. That's the pendulum swing for me. And I want it gone. I want us to go to balance, to centering. What about strengthening your why? I have 175, probably way more than that now, 175 non-scale victories. Those are my whys. The more whys you have, the easier this is, I'm telling you. And if you can add anything to what I've said today about how important stress is, stress relievers, how important it is to stay relaxed, how important it is to stay away from these processed foods, processed addictive substances. Sticky notes is something that I use really regularly. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 on my monitor right now. And they're really, really helpful. They pull us out of the amygdala. And if you remember, the amygdala it hijacks us when we're in fight, flight, or freeze. When we're in that stress mode, the amygdala hijacks us. And if you read a note, a sticky note, like, what do I really need right now? If that was on your refrigerator, it's actually pulling you into the thinking brain or the noticing brain. Both of those are different systems set up to pause and to give us a time to evaluate and reflect on really what is important. It allows our prefrontal cortex to come back online. Even just doing this, because the blood flow is literally gone from our prefrontal cortex, holding your hand to your forehead. I don't know if you're sensitive enough to feel it, but in the quiet moments, I can feel the blood rushing back to my prefrontal cortex. So noticing, really important. And then, boy, howdy, sweet potatoes and nutrition. Do you see how complicated our lives are? Do you see how challenging this is? Do you see how stressful we have in relation to just Tom, Dick, and Harry on the street who are just walking around? I'm not saying they don't have it hard too, but we've made a commitment to make these changes. And think about, this is hard work. I have a few other things on this slide deck. I promised to hand it out. These are 2 songs and a silly little, this guy got the lyrics wrong. So funny. Just makes me laugh every time. You know, before we could get all the lyrics handed to us. These are some other tools. Donna Eden is an amazing person around energy. And Dr. Mandel helps with pressure points as well. And then, of course, laughter yoga. And then I've got a list of books, and I've got more, and I promise they'll be legible when I get the slide deck out. But these are all books that have helped shape my information and my knowledge, along with a bazillion courses that I've taken. So good to see you all. Some of you I don't know. There's a Zoom user there, and Pammy and Jacqueline. It's nice to see you there, honey. And LD, I'm not sure who that is, but I want you all to know that that I really appreciate you coming today. This is the second presentation for 2 reasons. One, I started the recording about 10 minutes into the presentation this morning, and I thought, no, oh, hi, honey. The second presentation, because I started the recording late, but I got so many questions and so much feedback that was positive. And tomorrow's crazy. So I wanted to give you guys an opportunity to have the full recording as soon as possible. So are there any questions anybody has? This is a lot of information that I've given you and a lot to digest. Yeah, go ahead, Maria.
I just wanted to ask, what you were talking about, the 10-week diet plan? What were you talking about? Like in 10 weeks, you should have done it, or in 10 weeks?
I'm just saying that the weight loss plan was designed for a finite amount of time. Mm-hmm. And it is not designed nutritionally to go for years. To me. Oh,
right. I see what you're saying.
Yeah. To me, the plan that says 1 protein, 1 fat, or whatever numbers, proteins, fats,
right.
Has to be, have to take into account nutritional balancing for long term. That's what I'm talking about.
So are you talking about you're going to do something like that? Or you're just saying what she has out, it should be for a 10-week plan?
I don't have a 10-week plan, but I do have suggestions for veterans that have had long stretches of the weight loss plan. I absolutely do have recommendations. And one of those I can tell you right now is sweet potatoes needs to be a vegetable, and it needs to be in your diets all over the place. I recommend adding, if you are trying to lose weight again, and you lost weight and then gained it back, I recommend going to adding what is the equivalent of a grain at lunch and dinner initially. And I I don't automatically give people that's not carte blanche. That's the problem I have with the weight loss plan. There are too many variables. Do we exercise? How tall are we? How much weight do we have to lose? How old are we? All of these are factors involved. So I don't want to arbitrarily say that's my recommendation, but I do believe that each one of us, I'm happy. If you want to schedule a 20-minute with me, I can give you a weight loss plan that I think will start you out if you're trying to lose weight. The important thing is to solve one thing at a time. If you're challenged with keeping your food plan at all, keeping it balanced, we need to make sure you're getting enough food so that you stop the yo-yoing.
Right.
And also the possibility of metabolic slowdown. So we need to give you nutritionally dense foods. That's why I talk about the nutrition, protein sources that are not really protein, that are mostly fat, for instance, nuts, almond milk. 8 ounces of almond milk is not a protein.
Right.
It's not anything. It's not anything. It should just be, just to be written down so you can keep track of it. That's it. No. Sorry. Does that make sense, Maria?
Yeah, and I also want to ask you, for that bulletin board that you have, all the sticky notes, I know you want to make yourself a book and all this other stuff, but I was just wondering if you're going to bless us maybe with taking a few and maybe doing a thing like this, and then just hitting on those things just so we can have like more of a grasp of it. Because I saw some of those that you put that totally relate to like even
Yes.
stuff that I would think about. I think that would be a good idea.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely, Maria. I'm finding this kind of format to be really supportive. I love this. And it's also helpful for me in getting my ideas. It's one of the reasons that I had to go into business for myself when I got canned from Bright Line Eating. I had to go into business for myself in June of 2020. And I've learned so much, and this is one of the ways I'm learning. So yes, I am going to be using that board to help me, and I'm happy to work up some particular discussions around. So if there's something in particular that you would like to learn more about, please message me and I'll happily do a class on it. It might be a 15-minute class, it might be a 30-minute class, it might be an hour long. Yeah, Paige, I'm sorry, you were going to ask a question, hon?
Well, you answered most of it. Sorry, I was having issues with messages like bing, bing, binging everywhere.
Yeah.
So that's what I was doing.
No worries.
On my phone. So I had a couple questions and you really answered them, but I'll mention, well, you answered one of them. So, I am changing career fields and probably going to get booted out of Bright Line Eating membership here as well. But it's, I feel like a fraud because I've been backsliding weight wise. And so definitely needing to find an alternative other than resuming to the weight loss plan over and over and over and over again. I haven't backslid, like a lot of folks, but I never did make it to maintenance. So, and I'm
you
not
maybe did. You maybe did. You just didn't realize the numbers were off.
Well, I haven't used a scale in years. I don't. So numbers. It's not about that. It's
Got it.
Anyway. The other question I was going to mention, and I missed a good chunk of this because I was in and out with kiddo stuff and this afternoon, but I heard you mention polyvagal theory, and as part of my I'm working on a dual board certification in holistic nursing and nurse wellness coach right now. And yay! So one of the classes that I'm taking is a 30-hour CME, continuing medication education credit on polyvagal theory this summer. Mm-hmm. So I'm curious, I was going to ask, if you felt like elaborating on that. I don't have a ton of experience with it yet. So
yeah,
but I know it's coming into we have enough evidence-based stuff for it to be a medical course.
We do. Absolutely. It's to me, it's gaining a ton of traction in the psychotherapy as well as the medical field, both. The Polyvagal Institute that Stephen Porges started, and Deb Dana's work on integrating it with the psychotherapy. She's got a book for therapists that you might want to get.
I think I
but
have seen that. Yeah.
yeah, it's got tangible exercises to work with clients and yourself. It's a beautiful thing to start with on yourself. And
Okay.
then there's, to me, the Bible is Sarah Payton's Your Resonant Self workbook. She
Okay.
wrote the book Your Resonant Self, and it talks about the savage. She uses at that point savage default mode network, but now is clear that lacerating is a better word. Savage has a tendency to go into the bad realm of not good words to use. So she talks about the lacerating default mode network and how that impacts our ability to stay warm and resonant with ourselves. And she found when she wrote the book, Your Resonant Self, there were actually tons of people who were challenged with even being nice to themselves for even a minute, even saying one nice thing to themselves, even loving oneself. And it's because we have unconscious contracts set up that say we can't love ourselves. We are not worthy. And believe me, after 35 years of being told that, right, all of the bad things that people tell me because of, right, all of the ways that I believed all of those things. So those unconscious contracts need to be blessed and let go of. And that's part of what her work is, which is, to me, the hands-on application of what we do in healing ourselves around our addictions. So those are the ones that I would recommend. And that's where I'm actually taking a year-long course with Sarah. And I'm planning to offer a course myself that would be focused on weight loss and maintenance and from the Polyvagal Theory and resonant warmth.
How do you spell her last name?
Peyton, Peyton.
Say it again.
P as in Paul, E-Y. T-O-N, T as in Tom.
Okay.
Peyton. And her first name is with an H.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I highly recommend the workbook. It's not an easy slog though, and that's why I'm going to be offering a class in it. And the Your Resonant Self is the original book she wrote. It doesn't talk about unconscious contracts very much, but it does talk a lot about the lacerating default mode network and resonant warmth and healing our inner critic. It's a beautiful first step. She's got meditations that go along with each. She's a really beautiful, warm person. She came through Deb Dana's work and also nonviolent communication and constellations work. So that's her focus.
Thank you so much for sharing that resource. Like I said, it's a class that I am signed up for in Albuquerque, New Mexico this summer, but as part of a medical conference. So it's for physicians and nurse practitioners.
I think that's
I'm excited. But
yeah, I'd love to hear anything that you can share with me, Paige. I would love to hear it. Yeah.
So we'll just have to do tea or something.
Exactly. Duh. Here's my teacup. I'm sure you have one.
Not with me because I just ran in here to sit down before we.
No, but I'm sure you have one somewhere. Yes, we will have to do tea. Absolutely. Let me just check the chat thread here to see if there were any other questions. How do we know if we're in metabolic slowdown? That's a great question. So there's a few things. First of all, if your weight is plateaued or you're gaining weight, even though you're eating pretty well on plan, that's one indicator. If you're struggling with things like hair loss, if you're struggling with feeling cold all the time, if you're struggling with energy, low energy, those are some very basic ones. Metabolic slowdown, you can generally assume if you have been on the weight loss plan for any amount of time, you have metabolic slowdown. Think of it as the Biggest Loser effect. There's a ton of research on the Biggest Loser effect. Harvard Medical School and some others have done some major research on that study, because here you have a bunch of people on a very restricted diet and a very high exercise routine. And guess what? They can't keep it up. And they keep even the ones that stayed with the restricted diet could not keep it up. So my understanding is we need to give you more food. And I know that sounds bizarre, but basically you need to tell your brains you're no longer starving. Now, it might mean that you might gain a little bit of weight. My experience has been that adding more food, specific foods like sweet potatoes, and no, I don't own stock in it, like sweet potatoes, can really make a difference in our satiety levels. It stops us from needing to eat off plan. So the only other reasons would be emotional, behavioral. And it allows us, our brain, to settle in and say, oh, so doing those breathing techniques, doing those mantras and saying to yourself, I'm safe, I'm calm, I'm at peace. All of those help our brains stop that train wreck. Yeah, go ahead, Paige.
So I'm curious, because I'm sure you do have it, why you choose, and I'll just mention the medical model, choose sweet potatoes for satiety, or what it is in sweet potatoes you feel adds to the satiety effect, or why you choose to add them. I'm sure there's multiple reasons, but I'm thinking that the medical model, of course, it is keto centered right now. It's very ignorant. It's very carcinogenic, but the medical model is to throw protein into the mix.
Right. And I'm not saying I don't recommend, I use protein powder. So I'm not saying I don't recommend making sure, and that's why I mentioned almonds and almond milk. But Stephen Porges actually recommends the sweet potato in particular in his book around satiety, when it is one of the most satiating foods on the planet, is one of the most highly nutritionally dense foods. And depending on how you prepare it, it's fairly low glycemic. So if you're concerned about the glycemic levels, the blood glucose levels, sweet potatoes actually are designed to, are nutritionally valued enough to fill you up better than brown rice, right? Better than white potatoes. Now, if you're going to use white potatoes, I recommend cooking them the day before, 24 hours before, and putting them in the refrigerator. Their glycemic index goes down by half. So really important to not eat a potato. So I generally suggest a grain with lunch and dinner as my recommendation, and at least 50% is sweet potatoes in your grains. I prefer that you have them always and exclusively, other than maybe quinoa. Quinoa is another one that is really highly satiating and has a lot of nutritional value. It is more protein based. And I want to give a little bit of a note around keto. It is not a good idea for women. It basically pulls out it dehydrates us, in essence.
Among other things. One of the other big things I have with keto is that it specifically encourages your body to create the visceral fat that forms at the pancreas.
Yes.
It just quadruples your risks of those, the third leading cause of death right now in the United States is colon cancer. And it's we're talking a 98% increase in women 25 to 35 right now. But pancreatic cancers, all of those kind of, deeply neuroendocrine tumor cancers.
Yes.
You are just fed by a keto diet. Like, yes.
Mention how hard it is on our kidneys. Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Sorry, I interrupted you, Paige.
No, I was just saying, I understand that doctors see a quick start in weight loss among perimenopausal women or postmenopausal women, which is the bulk of obesity studies right now, or the bulk of obesity clinic patients. And it does seem to be effective in getting them to lose weight, but you give them cancer and it drives me crazy.
I couldn't agree with you more. I find it so frustrating. I do. And full disclosure, I'm vegan, but I have actually done vegan keto. I did it. I like I said, I've done 1,000 different things to try to maintain my weight loss. When I finally figured out I was in metabolic slowdown and that I needed to add more food, it made all the difference in the world for me. The other thing I want to say is, there's this huge business around too much sugar coming up from smoothies. I have smoothies every morning. And they're really important to my nutritional start every day. I had for a long time, I couldn't eat raw vegetables and I had to figure out how to get my greens in. And smoothie was the only thing that I could do. So now I can. I've made some major shifts in my gut, but in the process, I had to do smoothies. I won't give them up. And they don't kick me into some sort of a sugar high. I have fruit in my smoothies. I have greens. I have protein. I have sweet potatoes. Put sweet potatoes in a smoothie. Ooh, makes
Potato and nuts.
some creamy. Yes, they're delicious. I love food, guys. I am not a food addict. I'm not a food addict. I'm addicted to substances injected into these foods by corporations. And yes, that's my righteously indignant moment. Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah, go ahead, Maria.
Oh, my friend and I are talking offline here. What's included in your magic price for your group? What do you get?
Okay, and so what Maria is asking about is the magic group that I have, magic membership. I'm on 4 calls a day, Monday through Friday, and they're recorded. They're a half an hour. There's all sorts of studies that say trusted community is vital to maintaining your addiction. It is actually the antithesis. Trusted community and connection is the antidote to food addiction. So I have 4 calls a day. I have book clubs twice a week, actually 3 times a week. Now we've got 3 different books going. We've read, I know, I'm a book whore. I can't say enough. And we also, every other week, we have magic words, which is a journaling and a writing time where we have, it's yummy. And that's every other Saturday. And then other special stuff going on. I have small group coaching that I do. Plus I do my own, I do one-on-one coaching. I think it's obvious somebody's been on my website or asking me about it, but I did not create this to sell stuff. I just want you all to hear, but I'm happy to talk to you, anybody, about getting into the magic or getting in. So that's what's involved in the magic. It's quite robust and intended to be supportive. It doesn't mean that you have to attend all of these. Our busy schedules are really challenging, but I can tell you that it's a beautiful community. We have a few people on the call right now who are part of the magic. And so they get to take advantage of this, and I am on every call. Okay. Sometimes I do sleep in, I will admit it. The morning calls are at 4:30 my time, but I'm almost always on them, right?
Yes, and 99% of the time they're recorded too. So if you do miss it, you can catch up.
Yeah, I very rarely screw that up. They're automatically recorded. So yes. Does that answer your question, Maria?
I know sometimes you have deals or whatever. What's the price right now? What's the going rate right now?
It's $30 a month.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
Thank
and
you.
if you want to message me, I can send you a link to connect with me, and we can have a chat. And you said you've got some people that are interested. I'd love to talk to you about just having a conversation with all of you together.
Okay, I won't out them out.
No. I'm suggesting if you want to message them and let them know, I'm happy to have a private conversation with all of you. That would be fun, actually. Yeah. Anybody else? Any other questions? All right. Thank you all. You all know how to reach me, right? Sonia Irvina Johansson. I think I'm the only one on Facebook with that full name. Just make sure you spell it with a J. I think you'll find me anyway. So message me if you have any questions. I really believe very passionately that there's just a few things that are slightly off that will make a huge difference. Just a slight change. It's like the gears of a big clock over a beautiful tower. And if it's not quite working right, it doesn't work at all. So thank you. Thank you all for being here. And I will continue to have these, and I really am excited. I appreciate all of the interest and the questions, and love you all.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.